to complain, but this thing's in the game. What's your name? Consequence, I'm tight, burnt like flames. And why's that? American dream, they got this ghetto kid in the fiend. Don't stress that, cause it's not in your bloodstream. Your whole being comes from greatness, we remember. Chase on got you caught in the storms of December. And brothers on the block packing nines like September. Change the situation, check it.
I'm Sasha Nicole.
And I'm Star.
And this is Amerikan Therapy, the definitive podcast on all things Black mental health. And today, what are we talking about, Star?
Oh, you would put me on the spot.
Yeah, it's on you.
So I've been struggling to find a name for this. So we just going to call it how mindfulness and meditation can help with your mental health. That's what I got right now. I know it's not a zinger like normally, but
it's all good.
All
it's
right.
all good. So we have a...
I wanted to say when your mind is full, how to be mindful, but... Corny.
You know what? But what's her name? Tina Knowles has the corny joke time. You guys would be wonderful. So we have an in-studio guest, and we also have two guests on the phone. We're excited to have them. Ooh. Everybody is new. We have a new therapist for today, so we're super, super excited.
Dr. Royster's out.
Right.
She's on vacation.
All right, so our first guest we have is Meico Whitlock. He's a speaker and trainer on mindfulness, technology, and productivity. Meico is the founder and CEO of Mindful Techie, an organization that through talks, workshops, and coaching helps purpose-driven high achievers and organizations have an impact without burning out and being distracted by technology. Meico helps busy professionals and organizations integrate purpose, intention, and mindfulness into their day-to-day work in order to increase employee satisfaction, productivity, and work-life balance. He is also the creator of the Intention Planner and has been a featured speaker on ABC News, Fox 5, Radio 1. And has even been on the main stage at events such as Nonprofit Technology Conference. So, Meico, we're going to need you to slide us up in some of these things.
Come on, we coming with you. We coming with you.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We also have Wendi Cherry, who came to the realization that she was born with all of her goddess powers already within. You know, I walk around thinking that I'm truly a god.
Yes,
so I really be telling people that. Yes. She changed her diet, her mindset, and career, and that's when the revolution began. She's a certified integrative nutrition health coach, producer, and the host of the Sanctuary radio show on dcradio.gov. She's also been featured on 89.3 WPFW, 93.9 WKYSF, FM, 96.3 WHUR, and is a contributing writer for the AARP Sisters newsletter. Her upcoming book and audio version, From Jersey to Me, The Awakening and Healing of a Goddess, hits shelves soon. And she just mentioned she's also going to be going on a book tour. So we're super excited to have her. So
awesome.
Clap, clap, clap.
Happy to be here.
And then last but not least, we are so happy we have a therapist today, a social worker, Mr. Gary Trey Taylor, who is a social worker, mental health advocate, and published author. Gary blends his clinical skills with creative, unique approaches via his business, Uphold 31.8 LLC. What Bible line is that? 31.8.
I know. I'm like...
Proverbs 31:8.
I'm going to have to go look it up. Y'all know I'm a heathen. I don't
what
know
is it?
about
What does it say? What's the line? Do you know it? I mean,
speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. So he upholds all of his clinical skills through his business, Uphold 31.8 LLC, which is a consulting agency dedicated to educating the world about mental health.
Wow.
He's also the author of You Good Fam, an analysis of mental health in the Black community and mental health keys, a guide to manage your mental health daily. And Gary holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Virginia Commonwealth University and a master's degree in social work from George Mason in policy and advocacy. And he is in pursuit of his licensure and wants to start his own private practice. He's had a variety of experience over 8 years, an incarcerated father, state and local government, psychiatric and patient hospitals, nonprofit, and crisis therapy. He also facilitates groups and workshops in mental health on anxiety, stress, suicide prevention, and a variety of other things. He is married and a father of one, and you can find him on social media, Twitter, retro_GT, and Instagram, retro_GT, also on Instagram, _uphold PODS. And so we're excited to have you. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Yeah, thank God for having me, man. I appreciate it.
That's a lot.
I know.
We got a lot going on today. That's a lot of good stuff, though, right? A lot of good stuff. So we talk about mindfulness. We just even had this conversation just before we went on air. So can Wendi and Meico, can y'all first weigh in on, like, what is mindfulness? What is it not? What a Black, because you say mindfulness, and some of my girlfriends will be like, girl, I'm a Christian. Right. I don't do that. And it's like, so can y'all school us, get us up to date? You want to go first, Wendi, or Meico? One of y'all.
Meico can go first.
Okay.
I'd like to hear what he says.
Sure. So
I know there's been a lot that's sort of written about that, and it seems really trendy. It's a lot been covered in the news and in the media. But when we really boil it down, mindfulness, we repackaged and we've renamed it. It's really just a natural state of being, right? And so it just means, when you really boil it down, it means to be aware. And there are lots of fancy definitions out there, but it means to be aware. So when we were in the caves and, we're evolving as humans, we had to be mindful and aware if there were threats, right? If there were tigers, lions, bears, whatever it is, right? And so when we talk about being mindful, that's really what we boil it down to. And one of my favorite definitions of this is really to really be focusing on, when we're mindful, we're focusing on the present moment, and we're doing that without judgment and while also acknowledging how we're feeling in our mind, how we're feeling in our body. That's really the essence of how I think about what mindfulness is.
So I was on point.
Yes.
You said positivity, though.
But I also said it's about consciously being
Yeah,
aware
you were
of
definitely
your
on
mind.
point
But
with
I subscribe to mindfulness being a part of positivity too. But
I receive it. I receive it.
I agree. And so
You wrong.
to me, it's the same. We agree. And I also like to make sure that I connect that we have to be connected to our bodies, because we're so used to just we're just on rote, we're just on autopilot. And when you're connected with your body, if your toe is tingling, and then you get then you figure out why. If you get a little sick feeling in your gut, so it's the mind-brain connection, the gut-brain connection. When you first feel a little anxious, or you get bad news, or something bad is happening, where do you hear it first? Where do you feel it in your body first? You feel it in your gut first. And then your mind processes it, and then you figure out what you're going to do. So it's very important that we understand that it doesn't have anything to do with if you're Christian or what other spiritual system you subscribe to. It's just the natural way of being. So I studied Tantra. And my teacher, shout out to Emmanuel Taylor, taught us that when we're born, we're like a plugged into the wall. We're totally aware of ourselves. We're happy. We're healthy for the most part. If we're born happy and healthy and a good set of parents, right? Parents that are nurturing, and you had a good experience in your mom's womb. As soon as you get to regular society, it pulls the plug out of the wall, and then you're unable to stay connected. And now we have all these distractions. So the brother who's going to talk about the technology and at work and making sure that you're still connected to being productive, that's what happens. So Tantra is, people think about sex, but Tantra really is about.
That's what
I was just about to ask.
Of course. So people think about that, but really, it's really about you being, connected to yourself, aware of who you are, at your most, human possibility, at your most human level. Right when you're out of the mother's womb, if you've had a good experience, then you should be thriving. That's why you see little kids, they're just laughing and joking, and then after a while, their mama says ta-ta, and then there it goes. They start to conform.
So Trey, go ahead. Was that Meko?
Yeah, I would just like to add a little bit to that, because the conversation around, I'm Christian and I can't be mindful, or I can't practice mindfulness. I just wanted to emphasize the point that when we talk about mindfulness, particularly the contemplative practices like meditation, for example, there are examples of those types of practices across all traditions and spiritual backgrounds, including Christianity. And so it's not a religion; it's just a way of being, as we talked about earlier. And in terms of focusing on the positivity, it's not just about being positive, because when you're aware of how you're feeling in your body, your mind, your spirit, you are in a place where you're able to use mindfulness as a tool to be resilient in the face of the negative emotions and the negative feelings that come up, right? So you're not running away from those things, you're not reacting to those things, but you're responding to those things from a higher level.
Correct. Can I give an example of that?
Hold on 1 second, Trey. Can you come in and speak to us from a clinician standpoint, what your thoughts are about mindfulness and how you incorporate it into practice?
Yes. So with mindfulness, mindfulness is one of the criteria from a therapy intervention that we typically use as therapists, called dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a derivative of cognitive behavior therapy, which focuses typically on the negative emotions that we have and the thoughts and process and behaviors. much of which to our guest speakers of what they've already talked about in layman's terms. And so most therapists use mindfulness practices because you can take mindfulness and use it in different ways, not from that actual DBT model. And so, mindfulness is a state of actual focusing and being present in the moment, present with your thoughts, emotions, feelings, what's happening in your body, how are you feeling. Some people like to do a body scan where they just sit there and they sit present in the moment and feel what's going on and happening in their body. And taking time to do that and utilize those different practices, like the good brother says, will help you going forward throughout the day to how you react, how you respond to different situations. Now, because you already have established the time and practice mindfulness and being present in the moment with your body, you're now prepared for the day to be able to tackle those different stressors, those different life curveballs that's being thrown at us that we're not prepared for. Doing mindfulness practice is pretty key, I think, and I love the trend of where it's going. Because when I first heard about it and first dealt with it, I said to myself, I couldn't do it. I was in grad.
It takes practice.
It takes practice. I was in grad school, and my teacher, professor, she was actually certified in DBT and mindfulness behaviors, and she had a practice activity of mindfulness, sitting in the classroom and just focusing on our breathing. And that, to me, was very difficult. And
that's real though.
Yeah, it's like a muscle you have to work.
Yeah, you have to keep working at it. And so, which is crazy that these episodes come up, because I recently, in the past 2 weeks, when working with my therapist, I felt overwhelmed and felt like everything was going crazy. And he was like, "You need some clarity," and he talked to me about doing mindfulness. And I can see night and day difference of me practicing mindfulness in the morning, how it affects my day going forward, how it affects my stress reactions, my moodiness, my irritability, my energy levels, how I react to everything going forward in the day if I start my day with mindfulness. And for the Christians, like we say, I'm also a Christian. I'm a deacon at my church. Mindfulness has nothing to do. It's not a non-religious practice. It's just something we do. And you look at meditation, even in Christianity or believing in the Bible, we meditate on the God's word and prayer and stuff like that. So it's just the same thing. But using mindfulness in the morning, starting my day with mindfulness, transforms how I react throughout the rest of the day as a clinician.
That's good to hear that a clinician is using it for themselves, not just their patients. So Wendi, you were going to tell us about what the example of mindfulness and what's the difference between reacting and responding, because we know that that's one of the core tenets of mindfulness.
Yeah, so for me, I am learning to be mindful, but then learning to take an action when I feel something. So yesterday was a very stressful day. I was sitting at my desk and something wasn't going right. And when I decided, so for me, everything is energy. And so I know that if I could keep my vibration high and think about things and surround myself with things that make me happy, then it helps me to attract more of those things, right? So I'm sitting in my living room. It's beautiful. The sun's in there. I have plants and flowers everywhere, but I'm working and then my computer freezes. But it was freezing and it froze for 10 minutes.
Ooh.
So then once I started to think about how I was feeling, because I caught myself hunched over, stressed out, fingers like this, not breathing, I was having shallow breath. Right. I was having shallow breath. And so I knew what to do. So I got up and I turned on music I liked, because at that point I could either start efforting, trying to force something to happen, or I could start to raise my vibration. So I'm low. The vibration was low.
How did you know you were low? How did you
Because I felt my body.
You could just feel
I was
yourself
hunched over on the computer. Okay. I was frustrated. My fingers were trying to get this computer to come back on. I had no, understanding of what was going on. And so I just put on some music that I like. First of all, I had an emotional discharge. I got up and I started walking around my house. So that's very important, is an emotional discharge, because I feel like we are taught to suppress our emotions.
So what is that for our audience? Because
So
we don't know. We
you,
here to learn.
you go, get up and shake your hands, or stomp your feet, or run around, or do a jumping jack, or whatever it is you want to do. Remove yourself from the situation. But so like we're taught to suppress our emotions.
Don't act like
suck
you're
it
upset.
up.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, whatever. But I know that I was upset. And that, that's like we have light and we have dark, is duality. So I was feeling good and then I wasn't. So what was I going to do to make myself feel better? So I got up, put on some good music, and I went and danced in the sun, because the sun is beautiful in my home. That was starting to make me happy. Then I went and peeped at the computer, nothing. Then I just went and put some clothes away. And then I got on the phone with my sister and totally forgot about it. And we were laughing and chit-chatting about our upcoming trip together. Went back to my computer with a different energy, and it was fixed. So it's sort of like being aware and having the tools. So when you talked about like a positive mindset, I knew that I needed to shift the energy and I needed to raise my vibration. And I have tools to do that. Whatever, it can be different for whatever. You might want to go kiss your baby, or go get
Snuggle my dog.
Yeah, whatever it is that works for you. So I think everybody is bio individuality. Everybody reacts to things differently. So we can't put things in a box. So when you were saying, well, I don't know if that's mindfulness, or there's clinical, like the brother was talking about, because he's a psychologist, and then he said we spoke in layman's terms, but I still got the job done.
I got you.
Yep.
I'm with you.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, I got one more question for Wendi, because like Wendy's like vibrating over here, right? Like, I'm like, oh, like, how did you come to Wendi from Jersey, right?
Yes.
You're from the same hometown as Wendi Williams, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how did you get from Wendi from Jersey? Because I have friends from Jersey, and they are aggressive.
So yes.
How did you get
like
here?
So and I have a book. It's coming. It's coming out on next week. I go to print on Friday.
Okay.
It's called From Jersey to Me: The Awakening and Healing of a Goddess. Because I used to be off the chain.
Okay.
And I'm a Scorpio, so my Scorpio was like always ready to attack. And so I talk about in my book. So it's wendicherry.com.
Okay.
But what I did was I had to realize that I controlled myself.
Okay.
And I can't control other people. And I realized that the revolution had to begin within.
Okay, now.
In the mirror. So I've been in situations and around people and in relationships and in job situations where I was ready to choke people out. And
because you work for the Grammys, right, or something like? Okay,
I did. That was just one of the places where I was ready to
like
choke
somebody out. Oh, my goodness.
But then I realized that I can't control these people, and for my health to be better, for me not to grind out my teeth, for me not to feel less than, for me not to be called aggressive, or have all these microaggressions coming at me, I made a decision to come up with a plan to remove myself from the situation.
Okay.
So again, if you're going into an environment every day where there's low energy, low vibration, then that's what you're going to keep getting, and you're going to feel that. I removed myself from the situation, and then I got support. I have different people that have come into my life. When I made the decision that the revolution was in the mirror, then the universe brings the resources to support me on that and to help me build that out and understand what it means for me. And so now, like yesterday, I was able to use all that, that information and wisdom that I've gotten over the years. I'm 49, so it didn't come easy. It didn't come easy.
Girl, you do not look like you're
so
49.
Thank you. It didn't come easy, but now it's here, and so now I can use the tools. And so my daughter is 17, so I'm teaching her now, because I don't want her to be 18, 27, 42, feeling and being emotional and being stressed out and not knowing her divine purpose and that she is a god, because she is. We're all born goddesses and gods.
I receive it.
Trey, when you were talking about the mindfulness that you do in the morning, can you tell us what does that look like? Because similar to the example that Wendi gave on how she recognized a situation that she could be mindful in, or other situations surrounding her that she was mindful in. When nothing has happened and you're just starting the day, how are you, like, what does that mean? Like, let me practice mindfulness before my day even begins.
So, you know, and I want to piggyback off like that. Her Wendi saying, you know, you control what you can control, and that's so. I live by that statement. Just control what you can control, and everything else will fall into place. You have to do some introspection and mindfulness on your reactions to things that get you stressed out. Wendi, I'm also a Scorpio too. I've had anger issues in my past.
Got two lunatics.
I'm married to a Scorpio, so I hate all y'all.
That's three. So we got 3 Scorpios on the line. No. But, you know, the anger issues for me, you know, was, you know, I started to figure out why am I reacting the way I'm reacting? And then I point out that actual trigger. What is the trigger? Okay. Can I change it? All right. Well, I can change it this way. I change my reaction, right? So, you know, you have to take self-inventory of yourself to understand how you react to your stressors and react to your everyday issues going on. But in the morning, for me, what mindfulness looks like is that, you know, I have a pretty stressful day. I don't have a stressful day. I've changed jobs and things have worked better for me. So, but I was finding that because I was so busy. So, you know, I commute to work about an hour to work. I take my daughter to her grandmother. And then I'm pretty much tied up with jobs or my business or whatever, you know, community stuff, 12 to 15 hours a day. And what would happen is that I wouldn't take time. I would lose time for myself, because when I get home, now I got to be husband, now I got to be father, and all these other things. And so as a result, I will become more irritable with my wife or with friends. I would become more I don't want to be bothered by people. I don't want to be around people, you know, like, you know, just my sleep patterns will get disturbed. I'll have some anxiety here and there, the symptom of anxiety, some overwhelming feelings, overwhelming thoughts, just can't focus and maintain. And it wasn't outwardly coming out as far as, oh, I'm dragging, I'm doing this, that, and the third, but it was there. I could feel it.
So no one else could see it, but you could see it. You could feel it.
Yeah. Because I can put a mask on really easy. You know, with what's going on, and that's just come from working in the field for so long, and then also just me being a black man, and some stuff. You know, right? So for me in the morning times, you know, when I talked to my therapist about it, he was like, you know, you need some clarity, you need some time to yourself, probably. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I feel that. So at one point in time in my life, a couple of years ago, I was doing this thing where I would de-stress, and that means like taking time to relax and just chill and relax between activities. So I would come home, and I'd take an hour to myself, and I wouldn't do anything, and then it will flip. My wife would take an hour to herself, and she wouldn't do anything.
But what does that mean? Because, like, you know, when most of us as Americans, with Meko, you weigh in here too, with the digital devices, we say we're not doing anything, but we're like watching TV or we're flicking through a phone for an hour. Like, I looked up one day and I was like, I've been on Instagram for like 80 minutes. I don't know what happened.
Well, that can work for some people. Yeah, it's a decision. It can work for some people, but it can't work for some other people.
Okay.
But I would reduce it. Like, so in the morning, so let's go back to the morning piece of it. Like that, so my de-stressing piece was me kind of just doing whatever, but taking my time away from mental health.
Okay.
So we got to cut mental health trait off. We have to cut that social worker off and let him chill. But in the morning time, what I do now is, you know, I get up, and in order for me, I want to make sure my day is going to be positive and I can react in the best way possible. I can know how, instead of reacting to every single thing and getting stressed out over the smallest stuff. So I start with, you know, a prayer. I read a couple scriptures. I then meditate on what I read and what I prayed about. And then I also do some stretching in the morning.
Yep.
And so all of that right there is my mindfulness activities, and then I just kind of lay in the floor with my arms spread out, my hands spread out. I do my body scan, and I just sit and let my thoughts flow, let them flow, and get to a place of peace and tranquility, and then I go ahead and get the morning started.
Wow. So how do we let our Meko, how do we let our thoughts flow? Like, how do we get there for the person who's going to listen to the show, and then they're going to lay on the floor tomorrow morning with their arms stretched out, and they're like,
I'm going to do that joint tomorrow.
Right? So, like, for Sasha and I, we're going to be, like, on the floor at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, okay.
That's me.
How do we let things just flow when we're trained to ruminate?
That's the practice, right? So
Okay.
that's why we call it a practice, right? Well, at least in many traditions, you call the mindfulness-based activities that we're talking about a practice because it's an ongoing thing. You never perfect it. It's something that is a natural part of being. And so the other part of this, too, is that it's not about ceasing the thoughts. A lot of people think that when we talk about mindfulness, particularly meditation, that you're trying to get to a place where you're getting rid of all the thoughts in your mind. That's not really what the purpose of meditation is in particular. The purpose of meditation is to help you to just be fully present in that moment and to be able to be there with those thoughts, good, bad, ugly, otherwise, whatever's coming up, and to not be reactive to what's coming up, to be able to observe, as we were talking about earlier, the thoughts that are coming up, what emotions are you feeling in response to those things that are coming up, what are you feeling in your body, and to be able to, as he was saying, sort of be able to lie there and practice having all these things come up, but you not being engaged in actively responding to those things.
Or even judging
right?
it.
Even judging it,
Yeah.
right? So having compassion, being able to let things go.
If it's a bad feeling,
of.
I'm not like, oh, I'm not feeling it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm jealous of that person, or I don't really like that, whatever the thing is, or I feel ugly today. I can acknowledge it and keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
Exactly. You
Okay.
acknowledge it and you keep it moving. And how this shows up during the day is, when you build up this time actually practicing it, when those things come up during the day, you have those thoughts, then you're less likely to be reactive to those things in the moment because you've had the practice of pausing, right, and reflecting and not responding. So the question came up earlier when Wendi was you were asking Wendi, I think, how did she catch herself when she was having this bad day? How did she catch herself when she was feeling frustrated? Well, I imagine that part of that comes from the practice of just paying attention to how you're feeling, and so you notice it. Oh, I'm feeling like I felt like before. It's time for me to pause or to take a break or to do this or do that.
Correct.
I think that a good also example is funny because even earlier when you said, something as simple as I'm feeling ugly today, right? And remember we were with Misha, who works for the Afro, shout out to her, and we were doing an interview at her podcast, and we ended up taking a picture, and I didn't like the picture, and like I just didn't like it, and so. Typically, depending on whatever issue that a person may have or about their body, whatever that case may be, there have been moments where you can have something so simple and dwell on it for a very long time because maybe you feel ugly or maybe you don't like something. And so in the moment, it was like, I don't like that. But the difference in that moment as opposed to previous times is that I could often dwell and analyze, well, I wish that it would have been this way or I like that or I wanted it to be differently. But just owning the fact like I didn't like it and being able to move on from that. Whereas for a lot of us, and that's just a very simple example, for a lot of us, there are very simple things that we're not able to move on from.
Correct.
And then even recently, so we had an issue with one of our pieces of furniture, and we've been waiting on a part for almost 2 years. The part finally came in.
2 years?
2 years. The part finally came in.
Will you go to Marlo?
I did.
I knew it.
Part finally came in, and the service person called and said, we have your part, but we're not going to drop it off to you because you're out of your warranty. So I called back and I said, well, ma'am, like we filed it under a warranty, but it's been 2 years. You guys didn't do your job.
Right.
So she was just very rude and just nasty. And I was just like, well, I'm trying to explain to you, with the situation, and she's just like, well, you can let me finish. And I was like, well, I'm trying to say,
you can let me finish. She's like,
finish. And like, so like for y'all, for any people who know me, and Star especially who knows me, and similar to what Wendi was saying, like,
go left.
I am the queen. Like, you want to take it left, like, baby, I'll give you everything that you looking for. And so
drop that pen,
because I'm coming. I'm gonna roll up for real. And so it started to go left, and I said, well, ma'am, I'm trying to explain to you the situation. She cuts me off and says, well, who is so-and-so, which she names my husband. And she was like, I don't even need to be talking to you. I'm going to talk to them because they're the account holder. And I'm like, I'm listed on account number 1. Number 2, you knew that he was on the account before you called me. And number 3, like, you're trying to be funny, right? You're trying to be funny. So I said, well, you know what? Can I speak to your supervisor? She's like, well, I am the supervisor.
Oh, that burns me.
In that moment, I lost all levels of consciousness and mindfulness. I lost it. I was like, I started screaming. I was like, you can't possibly be the supervisor, because there's no way that a supervisor, somebody would let you supervise as incompetent as you are. Like, when I say I'm screaming, I'm literally screaming, laughing. And I'm losing it because I'm so angry at, like, what is your problem?
Right.
And then I already think like I'm a queen, like I'm royalty. And then I got angry because now I'm letting somebody who, like, I'm letting you make me mad. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so, so anyway, long story short, I called my husband and I'm screaming, and he's just like, okay. And I was like, you need to meet me there because I left work. I'm rolling up. I left work. I got in my car.
Are you sure
I
this
didn't
woman
care
even
about
worked
nothing
at Marlo?
it didn't even.
Was she on a call center?
It didn't even matter. I was rolling up to whatever.
Somebody needed to get it.
Somebody was gonna get it. I left my job, got in the car so angry, and I'm like, I'm about to pull up. And so, in the process of me being that angry, I end up going to the wrong location. I was so angry, I didn't realize where I was driving. That's how angry I was.
Yo,
that's bad anger. And I'm giving this example because anger has been a catalyst for some decisions that I've made that I couldn't get back. Mm-hmm. And so I'm so angry. I go to the wrong location. Now I'm even more angry because I'm mad that I'm at the wrong location.
Right.
And so if anybody's familiar with the Maryland area, I went to District Heights, the Regency Marlowe, whatever that is. I was supposed to be at the Brandywine one. So now I'm fuming because now I got to go to Brandywine. And, anybody know how to get into Brandywine? It's nothing but traffic. Yeah, like, one way in, one way out. So I'm trying to get into Brandywine. I'm still mad because now it's traffic. And I'm fuming.
You're like actively keeping yourself mad.
I'm about to say that's a long time.
It's a long time. But I'm so angry.
Stress on the
body. So I get all the way into, because now I'm mad about other things. The traffic not moving. Everything is bothering me. So I finally get into Brandywine. I pull in like over where the 7-Eleven is, where the Marlowe, where it used to be Marlowe, but it said Regency. So I then catapult into a different level of anger because I'm like, I went to the wrong location again. We're not realizing that Regency and Marlowe connect together. Yeah. So I get in. So long story short, why this matters from a mindfulness perspective is I stopped and I said, yo, like, it's a reason why. Like, there's a reason why I went to the wrong location because I don't need to be there in the first place. I'm too angry. I don't know, and I don't even know why am I so angry. It just
you didn't have a part for 2 years.
It just triggered something that wasn't even that important, and I don't even know what it triggered. Right. And then I had to consciously take a look at, was I really angry at her incompetence, or was I angry at the fact that I felt disrespected?
Yeah.
And so, and it's like, for me, that peeve of when you try to disrespect me, but then you disrespect me in a very like a shady way, like we're in the middle of a conversation and you're telling me, well, you know what, who is this anyway? Because I don't even need to talk to you. So then at that point, I'm just kind of like, hold on, Slim. Like, and so I get,
don't get mad again.
Right. So but I'm recognizing that this like I'm starting to come back to my senses of being more conscious and mindfulness of thinking about, why am I angry, first of all, and what was the purpose of me doing all of this? I've elevated probably my blood pressure tremendously.
And
then I get there, I get there, and it's just like, and I just take a deep breath, and I'm just like, it's no, because the manager at Marlowe ain't got shit to lose. But the role that I'm in my job and other things I'm working, I got a whole lot to lose.
You don't know. You don't know what's on the other end of that phone.
Right. And it's just, it's something that sometimes can be so simple that triggers a level for us as people and to make decisions that we can't fix or that we can't change. And so when I think of mindfulness, and the reason why I gave this story is because when I think of mindfulness, I think of if I could have gone back in that moment and been mindful of like I don't like the way that you're talking to me or the way that I perceive you treating me, but I feel this. Yeah. But however, I'm not gonna even respond to this. And since you are the supervisor, there's a store manager, there's other parts and components that I can deal with that doesn't necessarily have to deal with you. And oftentimes I think surrounding us in our life, there are little things that we may perceive in the moment as not so little, or that triggers something else inside of us that has nothing to do with that person. That, being conscious, or as I mentioned, like just being aware of how you're feeling or how you're thinking can really help you not make a bad decision. Correct. Because my husband got there before me and saw her. And it was intended, because if I had saw her, I would have put my hands on her.
And she might have put her hands back.
And that's cool. I was okay with that. In that moment, I was perfectly okay with that. But he ended up seeing her. I didn't end up seeing her, and it was because I wasn't supposed to.
That's why you went to a wrong location.
Right. Say divine love protects and enfolds.
There you go.
It protects you.
Say that again. Say that statement.
Divine love protects and enfolds.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we get so into ourselves, and I know for me, like my practice has helped me to step outside of myself whenever like something like that goes on. I'm like, hold up. Like she might be in crisis.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. You have to think about that might be her only power. That lady who works at Marlowe calling people and getting smart with people.
And people cuss her ass out every day.
Yep. So you just have to, do what you can control. Take care of what you can control. Well, I wanted to ask a question since we have people who are, Christians here. Yes. There's a pastor named Pastor Howard John Wesley. Yes. And I used to attend his church, right? So he's a cool dude. I call him Pastor H.J. Dub. But he said he's taking a sabbatical.
I know.
And people are losing their minds. And I think it's so ridiculous because he's a human being. So that's what I'm talking about, the lack of being connected to self. The lack of being connected to the fact that we are human beings and not human doings.
Ooh,
and the human doing over the decades and a century or so has killed Black people.
Yeah.
We are dying because we are human doings. And I give him, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT for deciding for himself that he needs a break, regardless of what anybody says. Now, I know he followed the protocol and the talked to his peoples first, his board and his trustees and all his peoples, and they put a plan together. And then I'm sure that they put it out to the people. But I'm so grateful that he did that. I think it's a good model. Yeah. I think it's a good model. And every time you about to go on vacation from your job, aren't you hyped?
And listen to the sermon.
Deserves it.
I say listen to the sermon because he gives the biblical reference of like the body needing rest. Yeah. And that, and I mean, I'm Christian. I was raised Catholic, and I go to church on Sundays and all that. But I think part of Christianity, some of it, as I start to kind of like learn a little bit more about like the history of Christianity and how it ties to my African roots and the diaspora. One of the things is that I think sometimes we try to make things look good, and we try to and that's the only reason I said it's not positivity when we were having that conversation earlier, because we try to mask things and put bows and ribbons on shit that don't need a bow or a ribbon. Some things are ugly. Right. We've been through a lot of trauma and it's in our DNA and in our own minds and our own experiences. So like I don't need to try to make that a positive. No, there is no positive in slavery. At least for me right now. Right. I don't see the positive, and I need to be able to be present with that and be present with like, yo, this ain't okay, and that wasn't right that happened to me. How do I then move from there?
Right.
But I can't get there if I need to put a smile on it.
Right.
And I feel like that with, like, I know my upbringing in the church, everything was very heavily focused on putting a smile on things. And I don't want to say praying things away, but if you had more faith, you wouldn't feel this way.
Right.
No, that's not
Right.
true.
Right.
So maybe if you could speak to that, pastor, you got anybody,
Well, I did want to say one thing is that he talked about all of the support that he gives. So you cannot give from an empty cup. So he's doing funerals, and he said he's funeralizing people that he loves, that he has built relationships with over the last 11 years of him being there. He has had to counsel people through things. He's had to counsel people through grief, through divorce, and all these things. That by osmosis, he's bringing that into his spirit and into his body.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot. And so I think that being aware, I think that if I could see him, I would give him the highest 5 because he gets a lot of props for me on that. And all the people who don't agree with it, I think that they are just not connected. Somebody said that's what he signed up for. Well, I think that when we have a history of pastors committing suicide, and if we have a history of, people who are therapists and all those things who, like my mom was a social worker for 37 years. She had ulcers because she brought in, she took in everything. And so I feel like those people who are judging on Instagram and on Facebook, they be the first ones to put the meme up, check on your strong friend.
Yeah.
So we picture him as a strong person. He's telling you, I need a break, and now you're going to hate. What's that about?
So what say you men on the phone here? I mean, we talk about a lot, but like with we talked about mindfulness. We're talking about, restoration and knowing when you need to pause. Like, what do y'all do?
Well, I think it's important to just provide some context. Like, all of us in the helping professions, like you can't pour from an empty cup. And, one of the things I work with people on in terms of work-life balance is, at least for me personally, I want to live in a space and a time where I don't need to take a sabbatical because it's built into how I'm living, right? Like I'm building in spaciousness in how I'm living and working where I don't need to take a long sabbatical or a long vacation because I'm building those in to how I actually get my work done, right?
Right.
And I think part of that has to do with two things. We're experiencing what I describe as an epidemic of what I describe as an intention deficit disorder. So it's IDD, not ADD. And essentially what that means is we are on autopilot responding to what the world is asking for us, that we are not taking time to consider what's important for us and what we actually need, and then aligning our time and talent and resources with that. And so we overextend ourselves, and we get to a place where we have to do what the pastor is talking about in terms of taking a sabbatical. Or in other cases, people get sick. We talked about your mom having ulcers, right? And essentially the universe or God telling you, okay, if you're not going to listen, then I'm going to have to give you a signal or a sign to help you, force you to sit down so you can actually rest and rejuvenate, right? And so for me, one of the things I've decided to do, because as a business owner and doing the work that I do full time, I've decided that I would rather make less money, I would rather serve less people and work less hours to have that balance in my life. That means that I'm growing at a slower pace. That means that I'm not able to take on as many clients as perhaps other folks are. But it also means that I have a peace of mind that works for me. And I don't have to wait until I'm falling over or feeling ill or feel like I'm exhausted in order to take time for myself.
Correct.
Wow.
It's funny because at work, I work with a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm so angry, I'm stressed, and they'll say something to me, and it's like, and it's a joke, so I hope no one gets offended, but it's like, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Those are third world problems. I live in the first world, and I will say that at work as a joke to say, like, I don't subscribe to that. Like, I don't, I move at my own pace, I let people know, I communicate, I'm responsive, but, I don't rush to get there at a certain time. I don't I just don't. But I'm reliable. I'm consistent. My manager, thankfully I have a good one, knows I'm going to get the work done. And it is a requirement for me. I won't even take an interview if it doesn't have certain things like telework and stuff like that. And so when people are like, well, I want you to work for me. And I'm like, well, my contract, this is what my requirements are, because I refuse, I can't process the thought of someone coming to work every day so unhappy and then working until like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, because we do have some, and I work for the government, we do have some government people who do that, and then complaining about it because I'm like, that's
not going to be
that
you.
doesn't
Some of them wear it as a badge of honor.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they like, I'm hustling and grinding. Well, then go ahead and grind yourself to the ground.
Grind to the ground.
And it just goes with Meko in saying that,
Yeah.
you know, you have to make the choice, as Wendi has said a few times in the interview, but you have to make the choice, the decision on what truly works for you. And I am a firm believer in, if you have made the decision that this works for you, then you can't complain about it, because you have to consciously decide, you know, well, what makes me happy? Do you, if this, because for some people it does make them happy, and then, you know, and you have to live in that. But, you know, I think it's just as a gearing off topic from a mindfulness and hearing everyone say their thoughts, I also think how mindfulness can be amazing in different areas. So as you mentioned the Tantra, sex, like mindfulness can be utilized in sex.
It's
No,
very
I'm
much
serious.
yeah, well, that's-
I teach it. So yes.
That's
But
the goal.
When you
a
say
lot of people,
present.
a lot of people wouldn't think of how much mindfulness can impact them in other areas.
Oh yeah. Because I think one of the things is like we're so busy and distracted, like we miss the richness of the moment.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not listening when other people are talking. We're listening like, okay, this is what I'm going to say, or we're not.
Exactly.
We're not just like, oh my goodness, like falling in love with like, oh man, your energy, your vibe. We can't even see that sometimes because we're in ourself. You know, we're not present, and so sometimes it's just when you can be like, oh man, let me just be present right now. You see all this stuff that's like, oh, I didn't even notice that shit was there. I didn't notice like, oh, Rodney's over here smiling and like everyone's really enjoying and this conversation, we're vibing. You know, like that's a beautiful feeling when I can get present enough and not be like,
and it's like birds and trees too. Like you think like there's this little chipmunk that's around my way. I don't know where his little buck comes from. He just pops out all the time. He is so cute. And my daughter and I, we like look for him, but it's just like he's just chilling. Yep. He's just enjoying life, and he's just so cute to see. Like we smile. Yeah, he gives us a little bit of joy every time we see him, and he's been around for like 3 years. We like, where'd you come from? Yeah,
where'd you come from? Nah, I catch that because like I don't know, like I used to work in like a really really busy, crazy environment, and like you said, Sasha and Wendi and everybody, like, you know, make a choice and what works for you, what doesn't work for you, because I respect having someone who's like, I come in at 10:15, I come in at 10:30, and yes, I will have a Starbucks cup in my hand. I will not act like I was rushing like,
I am her, she is me,
right? Because you know, I used to have an employee that we had a thing worked out, right? And then another lady, Erica, I'm sorry, who worked for me, she was late as well to work in the morning. I don't know, black women, we got a lot going on at home. I get it, right? But she was late to work every day too, just about. But Erica, her thing was, dare I say, make up a story. Like, you know, there's the person that's like, this is when I come to work. Yeah. Peace. Period. And then there's the person that's like, they late too, but they like, oh girl,
there was a snake in the garage.
Girl, the train was running.
I broke my leg.
I didn't know you was even riding the fucking metro, bitch. Well, today I rode it and it was late. Right. Like, bitch, every day something. I respect you more if you like.
Just tell the truth.
I come in at 10:30
Unapologetic.
and I got a hot coffee. And do you know, Erica, she was so enthralled with this other woman, like so. Like, it was just like she was like, oh, she's not here yet. You ever had employees that be like, oh, so-and-so's not here? Bitch, you know she ain't here.
That's me at the office. I was looking for you. Well, you know I don't arrive before
why
9.
were you looking
I don't know why you was looking for me.
And she could not stand that this woman and I had made an agreement. And I was like,
well, all she had to do was make an agreement. So it's a choice. It's a choice. And when you were saying that people have chosen to do certain things and that's what they have to stay in, no, they don't. You could pivot at any time, and people don't realize you can change at any time. And so it's self-preservation. So I moved past self-care and all those Gigi things. We're talking about self-preservation. If it preserves your sanity and your cortisol, to get up at 9 o'clock and be by 10:30 and get your coffee, then that's what you do.
And look,
but
I
you talk
gave
about it.
Erica, I was like, because you keep coming in my office asking me about some stupid shit. I'm like, well, you late every day too. So do you want to start coming in later so you don't have to tell me a different story every day? And she was like, oh no, I get up super, like, it was like, she couldn't even herself, like, I'm giving you an aisle and you're sitting here like, oh, no, I'm not late every day. I'm like, bitch, you was late every day.
Well, some people are martyrs. Some people are martyrs.
Yeah, she couldn't make the choice for herself. Like,
and they want you to praise them and give them a cookie because they get up early and they do all these things. Okay, do it. Stress yourself out. I prefer, like you, to just be on
I won't
the
even
flow.
take a meeting before 9. Like, even if
Right.
like a manager sends it, I decline it. And I propose a new time. This doesn't work for me.
I don't need to be
doesn't
running
matter
into
who
a
it is.
meeting in the morning time. Even if I did get there at this time, you don't want to be like, your first thing, I take my coat off and now I got to have a meeting with you.
I don't. I mean, the executive director themselves came and was like, "Oh, can you meet at 9:30?" No, I
Can
can't.
we make it at
doesn't work
10?
for me.
Yeah.
And I'm unapologetic about it. And so, as we,
That's what's up.
we had to go ahead and close out. As we close out, Trey, could you go ahead and close out we'll go around, but could you start with just closing out with any last words, last thoughts that you want to say about the topic at hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for having me on the podcast. I enjoyed being on this podcast with such distinguished individuals. But I wanted to say, we really neglect the small changes in life. And if we would make the small changes, such as getting up a little earlier or, taking the time to lay out some things, that will go a long way in how our stress reactions will decrease during the day and how we react to the world around us, man. But it's a lot of people, we always want a complex answer to a complex situation when it's really a simple solution. And we don't like simple solutions. People ask me, well, how can I be less depressed, or how can I be less anxious? And it's like, well, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, well, I do this, that, and the third. Okay, well, how about you try this? Oh, well, I can't do that. Well, if you're not willing to make the small changes that's going to help the major issue, then you're not ready to make that actual step and leap and change. Mm-hmm. So
that's true.
But I'm not getting up 5 minutes earlier, Trey. I'm just gonna let you know that. We just had this conversation, bro.
Nah, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, in general, like, okay, so like, I love coffee too. Like,
he's that boss.
Yeah. Well, you the boss. You do what you do. Never mind. You got
He's
it.
that boss. He's like, well, if you just get up 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah. But I mean, just like trying to, if I know I'm late, if I know I'm late, I'm gonna try to make sure like some stuff is done beforehand. Like, let's put the gas in the car before I go home. Let's put the car seat in the car before I get in the house and go to bed. Like, let's prepare my meal right now in the evening time so I don't have to be scrambling in the morning trying to find a piece of turkey and some bread. Where's the coffee at? You know what I'm saying? It's just if we implement small changes in our life on a daily basis, we'll see the major results.
Got it. Meko, what's your thoughts?
I echo that about small changes, and I would extend it to say that I think a lot of the challenges that we face that require us, at least in this modern world, to embrace these sort of commercialized forms of mindfulness have to do with being out of alignment with how we have been called to serve or while we're here. And so if we can begin to really take time to answer that question, why are we here, right? How have you been called to serve? And then align your life with that, then you won't be out of alignment.
I like
agree.
that. Wendi?
Okay. Excuse me. Being is the new doing. Just be. Align. I
That
think
might be on the
Meko
shirt,
is-
Wendi. I'm just gonna let
Meko
you know.
is
Don't
correct.
Come for us.
If you really do just take the time to think about what it is that you're here for, you don't have to do so much efforting. You don't have to do so much hustling and grinding and doing all those types of things. When you align and then you take inspired action, so you're not out there doing 10 different crazy things. You're taking the thing that makes you feel good. So again, I talk about the energy. I like to feel good. Whatever's going to make me feel good is what I'm going to do. I call that going towards the peace. So when you when you align and then you go toward the peace, and then just be. and just let it be what it's going to be. Okay. So the efforting and the doing so much sometimes is what burns us out also, you know.
I like that. I really like that.
Star?
This one was a blessing for me. I really appreciate all of you, everyone in the studio. Thank you. So that would be my first thing, gratitude. And then second would be just like I go back to Wendy's comment about the choice. You know, everything is a choice, and I'm empowered with choice. And it's all about how I use it. And when I use it in a way that's advantageous to myself or blesses me, I have to have gratitude for myself for making that choice. And then when the times where I use it in a way that maybe I don't make the most advantageous choices, I have to have grace for myself and compassion and be like, okay, that's all right too. And keep it moving. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just encircling what everyone else has said, again, thank you all for being here and taking the time out. I think if I had any last words, I would just reiterate, basically, you know, kind of similar to what Wendi said, just being. Like, I consciously choose to live in whatever I deem is my truth, however it is that I'm feeling. But for me, consciously choosing is also consciously recognizing my actions and the choices that I have made, because oftentimes, like the story that I said earlier, like that was a conscious decision, and it wasn't to me, it wasn't the right one, but recognizing that in that moment, it didn't have to be that way. And I think oftentimes if we could do more in recognizing, you know, the choices that we're making, the ways that we're feeling, we often could maybe lead more fulfilling or better lives, or live in more happiness. And then just recognize just being in general, just, you know, living and enjoying the things that are around you. And sometimes those things, they often get missed. So there's a wonderful conversation. We thank you all. Follow us, Amerikan Therapy with a K, Instagram, website, HBCU Mental Health Tour. We have new stops coming up in the spring, and we are so excited. So thank you all, and we out.
With the royal DJ, King Cyrus.
Who am I?
King Cyrus.
Motherfucker.
Oh my God, Cyrus.
King Cyrus.
You know when I spend my time when I'm with you. I'ma rap it by you, mean it like a zoo. I'ma treat it like a real man supposed to. Buy you diamonds with the matching Robin suit. If I'm riding, but you know she riding too. She gon' ride it like a Kawasaki woo. If you don't know what, but don't walk her like you do. Hell. I'ma cash out even though I'm not cash out. I'ma put up with a mean jet like a child. So much money you can't go in, boy, stay out. 50,000 on a TV, shouldn't even talk. Mellow vanilla, I put that shit straight in her mouth. Bitch, I'm